My name is Sarah, and my team members, Sam, Fatima, and Tahura, we put this project together, and it is regarding business planning. So as we all know, that planning is very, very essential in any business for it to be successful. And that's where you really need to put a lot of effort, because if you plan correctly, then everything else should go smoothly. I mean, there will always be some bumps, but that's something that you can encounter and work at it. So today we're going to focus on that, and let me go ahead and get that started. We did some brainstorming, and our project is opening, and this is actually a dream come true for me. I've been wanting to do this, is open a restaurant and a banquet. So today, in today's agenda, here are some check boxes that I tick mark, and you guys can go ahead and read that. This is what I will be covering today. This is what we made a project business case for opening up our restaurant. After doing some of the research, we came up with our cost, benefits, time scales, what we're looking at, our rate of return, and some of the risk that entails to open up this restaurant. But most importantly is the strategy. That why do we think that this will work? You have, like I said, you have to have very valid business plan, no matter what you do, what your plan is, whether it be to be open up a restaurant, online business, whatever it is. What is your strategy? So our strategy is to provide the best Asian food and the event services surrounding the residents. Currently, the main reason why we think this will work, because the location, there's no competition. There aren't any Asian restaurants or the banquets within 15 miles radius from the heart of Elgin. So after doing the research, we do think that this should work, this plan and strategy, as long as we put our time and effort into other areas like the cost and the other planning. Here's the project charter of our proposal that we have. That will cost about $275,000 to start the project. That is our budget. As long as we are going to go ahead and rent the facility, but if we were to own it, then I'll show you the breakdown that the cost will increase, obviously, because if you're going to own it, then it will go in a separate direction. So we do have our deliverables, what kind of objects will be, what we'll be serving. We'll be serving grab and go type of food, provide the services to the host events at a banquet. What are some of the assumptions that we have? So that we will attract the Asians as well as other type of patrons. What are some of the dependencies? We're assuming, and we're depending on the license being approved, right? If there is no license, we can't go any further. So these are some of the dependencies that we do have. Of course, we have some time constraints here that, the time frame from when we want to start, when we want to end. This is, again, is projected. We can always change it if needs to be, but this is what we're starting out with. What are some of the risk and issues that we have? So right now, currently, we don't have enough manpower. So we do need to figure out that if we need more manpower, what the cost is going to look like. And the competition may rise. There is nothing to compare right now. So remember, there's a win situation when you don't have any competitor, but then there's a downfall because you can't compare. When you want to do the comparative analysis of how it is working so that how I can do something differently to be successful in that area, there's no model. There's no model currently that I can compare to. So I will be making my own model if I do start this. Here's some breakdowns, project decompositions that we came up with. Some of the breakdowns that we would be needing is order management, that from the how we're going to accept the order, if it's going to be online, in person, telephone, some delivery management, whether, how far we want to deliver, food management, building management, because remember, we are going to have a banquet. We will need the event planner. So if there is any event, that whether are we going to do this ourselves or are we going to hire somebody? So these are some of the components breakdown that we came up with. And using the project library that we learned in the class, here is an example of a project plan that we have for opening up the restaurant at Elgin facility. We do have some resources, time frame, activities, which you can take a look at it. Our critical path, which is the main important here. We want to make sure that there's only one critical path, because otherwise project can be risky. So if we do, and then in order for that to keep it in control, we want to make sure that, your activities, your resources, your time is all balanced. And what are some of the techniques that you can use to reduce the project cost and the duration? So on your left side of the slide, we do have cost benefit analysis that will help you to reduce the cost of the project, value analysis, contribution analysis, planning and control of finance, and job evaluation and merit rating. So like for job evaluations, so you can have an employee that are seasoned that can do the same amount of job faster than the another candidate who John, let's say person A can do 8 hours of job with the quality work, and a person B can do the exact same type of job and can take 14 to 16 hours, and maybe not as much as a quality, maybe because they're not seasoned, they're not trained enough yet. So that's how you can play around with your cost to reduce the cost. For the time, you have a schedule compression, crashing, fast tracking, resource allocation, sorting the lag time between the tasks. So crashing would be something that, any projects that you can do parallel maybe. Yes, it can be risky, but if you can figure out some activities that you can do parallel, then maybe we can finish that faster. Fast tracking, where you would need to add some extra resource, but you would be done faster, but then your cost will go high. So you have to keep all this in mind. Here's a breakdown of the expense that we came up with to open up the Taj. And then again, we named the restaurant Taj Restaurant and Banquet. And here's an expense sheets that we came up with. It is projected, obviously, at this time. And at the bottom, you can see if we were to lease, it would be $275,000. And if we were to own, it would cost us $425,000 to start this business. Some of the resource optimization techniques that I think we can use is, first of all, what is the resource optimizations? It's a set of processes and methods to match the available resources that we have in hand, which is a human, machinery, financial, with the needs of the organizations in order to achieve the established goals. So there are a couple that we can use to optimize, and that one is a resource leveling technique, and the other one is a resource smoothing technique. Now, resource leveling can usually cause a critical path to change, and that usually to increase. So you want to be mindful and you want to watch that out, because you don't want your project to be risky having two different critical paths. So for leveling, a technique in which start and finish dates are adjusted based on the resource constraints with the goal of balancing demand for resources with the available supply. But with the smoothing technique, a technique that adjusts the activities of a schedule model of such that the requirements for resources on the project do not exceed certain predefined resource limits. So here's some example, a model that I came up with for the leveling to show you how that works. So for example, on the left side, this is a before the leveling. So this is how it would start out the project. Let's say John can do activity A and activity B, okay, on a day one for 8 hours each. On a day two, Mike can do activity C for 8 hours. So we're using 2 days here before we complete this job or activity. But if we level this, because if you notice as John is doing too much, maybe he is capable. We don't doubt that. But is that fair? We want to make sure that we are leveling our resource that we have. So what we're going to level is that in day one, John will do 8 hours of activity A. Day two, John will do 8 hours of activity B. And then day three, Mike will do the 8 hours of activity C. So we are leveling this, but then we are increasing by 1 day. So the duration went up here. On the other hand, resource smoothing, this is how I can explain in the pictorial form, is that before resource smoothing, if you see on the left-hand side, the cylinders, so on a day one, for example, activity one, John can do for 10 hours. And the day two, John can do for 8 hours for activity two. And then on a day three, activity three can be done by Mike for 6 hours. And then on day four, activity four can be done by Mike for 4 hours. So if you notice on the left-hand side, the cylinders are now leveled. The blue is longer. If you notice, the orange or the yellow is a little bit shorter than the green, and then the black is the shortest, right? So these are now leveled. So we need to smooth this out. Why not bring this little bit of blue and then distribute it around where black is very small? Let's give extra work over here. Maybe we have a little capacity with the green cylinder on the day three. We can add something over there. So this way we can smooth out our cylinders here. So here's my model that I came up with after smoothing out. On the right-hand side, on a day one, activity one, John can do for 7 hours. Day two, activity two, John can do for 7 hours. On a day three, John can do again activity three for 7 hours. And then day four, Mike can do activity four for 7 hours. Maybe John is more seasoned than a Mike. That is explainable. But now John has some breathing room. He's not going over 8 hours, which sometimes legally is not allowed in some businesses. So we're giving and then we're smoothing this activity out and leveling, so everybody has some room to breathe in between. To review, opening an Asian restaurant might seem like a challenge, but it isn't if you plan it right. Like it says, you need to plan, literally like plan to even plan. So planning is very, very important to be efficient in any type of business that you are going to open. And you need to take a systematic approach, use the technology where possible to make the job easy, and speed up, and use a bottom-up approach at every level when you plan for your business. Thank you, everybody, for your time. Do you have any questions, comments, concern?